tendeth my way when sorrows like sea billows roll. Whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. But Lord, 'tis for thee, for thy coming we wait. The sky, not the grave, is our goal. The sky, oh trump of the angel, oh voice of the Lord, blessed hope, blessed rest of my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my And Lord, haste the day when my face shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trumpet shall sound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul.
Grandma had this unquenchable desire to live life to the fullest. She was always seeking to go on some type of an adventure, and her idea of adventure and the world's idea of an adventure sometimes didn't necessarily align. She could turn anything to an adventure.
Probably one of my favorite memories with Grandma, it was when Meg was in Michigan visiting, and Grandma just said one day, I think that I'm gonna take you girls and we're gonna go ride an airplane over Mackinac Island. We'll drive up to Mackinac and then we'll get on an airplane. And so we seriously all got in the car. We went over the bridge and we went to this little tiny airport, and it was a little tiny airplane that literally fit me, Meg, Grandma, Sadie, and the pilot in it. Grandma Marcia climbed all the way to the back of the plane because she didn't want to sit in the front of the plane because she wanted her granddaughters to get to like see the giant window. We flew over Mackinac Island and the bridge and the lakes and got to see a whole bunch of really cool stuff from the air, and it was so much fun.
One of the things I remember most about Grandma and just over the years is that she's always been looking for things that I've been able to do, Just that was like her number one concern when finding an activity. Can Joel do this? And the first thing, the earliest I can remember, is the ski program. When we were, just young, really young. She took us to Cabernet Ski Lodge, and she got us all into the handicapped ski program. She took us glider flying, and she always took us on these, we called them our adventures, and she took us everywhere. She took us to Mackinac Island, and she was always so positive. About once a month, she'd have me, Savannah, and Sadie out to fold and stamp and staple Shackley newsletters, and we always had a good time doing that. We really liked it when she finally figured out how to get the printer to be able to do the stapling. That was nice. Again, always so positive, always smiling. I never heard her say anything negative. Even when she has cancer, I never heard her say anything negative at all. And just always just enjoyed things. Enjoyed her flowers. I remember it was her that was kind of responsible for putting a bird feeder out back behind my window so I could, watch the birds. Got a book about it.
My favorite memories with my grandma would have to be kayaking and gardening with her in the summer. I remember we'd go out as soon as it was warm enough, sometimes before it was warm enough, and we just have so much fun together. And she would take us to the Air Museum and ride on all the rides with us, and I remember thinking how cool she was. I loved it when she would take us to the house that she grew up in, and we would garden, see all the gardens that she started, and go hiking in the woods, and she'd walk on trails with us and show us where her friends lived and how they used to pick strawberries together, and that's how they made their money. And she'd just tell us all the stories about when she was younger, how much trouble her and her siblings would get into, and just some of the good things that they got to do when they were younger. I remember one Christmas, she took out her snowshoes. She had 2 pairs of them, and so she let me use a pair and her use a pair, and we went out when there was 2 inches of snow, and we snowshoed all around the house, and we just had so much fun doing it.
One of my favorite memories about Grandma is the story that she would tell me from when she and Grandpa were dating. If I remember correctly, he told her parents that he was going to take her to church on a Wednesday night. But instead of going to church, they went up to the water up north and they watched the Mackinac Bridge get built. I just think that is incredible. This amazing structure that my family drives across every year. My grandparents sat there on a Wednesday night and watched it get built. Unbelievable.
I remember weekly Bible studies in Grandma's basement as an outreach to the kids all across town. And I remember delicious fudge with tracts attached to it for Halloween, another outreach for the kids all across town. I have no idea how many kids we actually reached, but I know that Grandma always made it seem like I was doing missionary work with her. She locked in my heart that telling people about Jesus is important. I remember listening to Dan and Louie cassettes in Grandma's living room. Now I still share Dan and Louie with my own children. I remember a painting hanging on the wall that I always imagined was Nebuchadnezzar. I remember waking up one morning at Grandma's house and seeing her pacing in the green carpeted living room. I have no idea what she was praying for, but I imagined that she was praying for me and for my family. And the image has been locked in my mind as I've grown into an adult. And I've known all along that she's still praying for me and for my family.
One thing that I remember doing every time we were at Grandma's house was feeding the animals. So we would take all the food waste to the way back of the yard, walk it out there and dump it in a little pile for some animals to eat. My sister Meg and I would both stay with Grandma for a week. We would always go to the bakery in Reed City before it closed, and we'd always go to some sort of flower shop and get some flowers, and then we'd help Grandma with her flowers outside the house. And then when I got older, I started going by myself, and Meg would go by herself. And some adventures that we'd have with Grandma are we would go kayaking, One year we went over to Ludington State Park and we went tubing down the river. And then when I went away to college, she was really excited that I was going to school in Ann Arbor, so I was only 3 hours away from her instead of 6.
When I was young, sometimes my grandma would pick us up from school, and while I was at her house, I would always watch the 10 Commandments. And I loved it so much. It was so epic to me, and it was so much larger than life. It was so beautiful, and it taught me so much about film, but also about the Exodus story. It created a great interest in me for the Bible. It's amazing to me that now, decades later, my grandma gave me a Moses basket for my babies to sleep in. It's something that I will cherish forever. It's beautiful, it's handmade, and I just can't help but think about all the memories I have watching the 10 Commandments at her house. I had to learn how to appreciate my grandma's sense of adventure because it wasn't always so easy to understand. She and I have always loved to stand out. It's something that we have had in common, and it has made me gravitate toward her. Anything that set her apart and made her seem extravagant in any way just always made me smile.
Grandma took me on a trip up north once, and it was just her and I. And on the way back, it was in the evening, and on the way back, Grandma stopped and she asked me if I would drive. And I had my learner's permit at the time, and I was excited because I was able to drive with someone other than my parents. And I got in the driver's seat and started to drive home, and I knew everything was fine because there was a licensed adult in the car with me still. And the next thing I knew, I looked over and Grandma was snoring in the passenger seat. And I didn't know what to do. I just kept driving. She obviously needed some rest and trusted me enough as a 15-year-old to drive her home safely.
When me and Lexi were little, everyone knows Grandma has a ton of hats in her hat room, and she has all these scarves and she has all this jewelry and stuff, and she would let me and Lexi go and put on her hats, and we could find a matching scarf or jewelry or something, and then we would like put fashion shows on for her and Grandpa in the living room, and she absolutely loved it because we were trying on all of her hats and having so much fun with her stuff.
I do remember the small adventures we went on to the islands and to out kayaking adventures. I remember that Grandma being there made those trips special, and it wasn't because of anything that she particularly did. It was because she loved me, and because she loved nature and the birds and the cold water and God and everything.
She's always been there. There's never been a time where, I don't remember a time when she was not around.
She was the most incredibly supportive person, whether it was attending a birthday party or some kind of a theatrical production, a band concert or a graduation ceremony, a wedding or a baby shower. She was there for everything. It didn't matter how far she had to drive. She would get in the car and she would go.
I remember wanting to be just like her because she's so adventurous and we had so much fun together. I'm so thankful for her and all the years I've gotten with her.
Every semester she would make sure to come down to campus and make it to one of my concerts just to watch me play my clarinet, and she did that pretty much every semester. She just really loved to support me and to visit me whenever she could.
every summer she'd ask me what days I had off, and then she would want to plan to go kayaking. And so we would go so many times each summer, and then it was fun because, you have hours on the river where you're just talking or you're just kayaking, and getting to spend time together, and then go out to eat afterwards or something. And she would take big groups of us, and we would all just go kayaking, and we always had so much fun.
There was a day when I felt like a complete and utter failure. I felt undeserving of my family's love, or any love at all, really. And Grandma made it very clear that I hadn't been forgotten by her, and especially not by God.
She never judged me. When I felt judged by the whole world, she never did.
She was always so full of grace. There will never be another woman like her, and I will always be grateful for the example she set of love, support, and unshakable faith. I love you, Grandma.
Grandma has always loved her grandkids so much, and she has been so proud of them and impressed by them and excited by everything that they do. She just always made a big deal out of some of the smallest things, and she found ways to be so excited or, proud and impressed and by everything that us grandkids did. It seemed like it was too much, and it wasn't, needed, because those things were small. Those things, they didn't mean a whole lot to us because we always see ourselves as less. You don't ever feel that you are amazing, that you are something that people should get excited about. You're not impressive. You're just you. And that wasn't at all how Grandma saw us. We were amazing in her eyes. She was amazed by us. She was so proud to be our grandma. I'm so thankful for each of those moments and each of those memories that I have of my grandma being proud of who I am and the things that I've done and the choices that I've made in my life.
All the things that she did is just always so great. I was thankful to be able to spend just a little bit of time with her when she was back in the room and just sleeping. But she woke up enough to look at me, and I told my grandma, I told her I loved her, and she said, "I love you." And it's really one of the last things I remember her saying to me. And yeah, it's nice when you have a relationship with grandma that she knows. As her dad told me, he said, if you never get a chance to tell her, she knows.
Grandma, thank you for the foundation you helped lay in my life. Thank you for being constantly you, for seeing Grandpa and my parents and my family through difficult times, even as you have battled difficult times yourself. You are among the strongest people I've known, an absolute giant in the faith, standing among a great cloud of witnesses, a true woman of God. I know you love me, and I love you dearly, and I look forward to seeing you again. Dan.